Good afternoon and welcome to the BBC News at 1. The Welsh Government has announced it's introducing a short national lockdown. What they're calling a Firebreak will begin at 6 o'clock on Friday evening and will run until the 9th of November. People in Wales will be asked to stay at home and all non-essential retail will close. Pubs, bars and restaurants will be restricted to takeaway service only and households cannot mix in any location. The First Minister, Mark Drakeford, said the objective was to break the chain of infection. Our Wales correspondent Thomas Morgan has the details.
As autumn turns to winter, there's a sense of déjà vu in Wales today, as the prospect of another national lockdown becomes a reality.
We know that if we do not act now, it will continue to accelerate, and there is a very real risk that our NHS would be overwhelmed. Over the weekend, the Cabinet of the Welsh Government met to continue our discussions about a time-limited firebreak, a short, sharp shock to turn back the clock, slow down the virus and give us more time. We met again this morning, and we have now reached the difficult decision to introduce a 2-week firebreak starting at 6 p.m. on Friday this week.
So from 6 p.m. on Friday until Monday the 9th of November, the Welsh public have been told they must stay at home as much as possible. There'll be no mixing with any of the households indoors or outdoors, and they can only go outside for exercise. Non-essential retail shops will close, as well as leisure facilities and gyms, as well as hospitality businesses, bars and restaurants, with the exception of takeaways. And there'll be a £300 million business support scheme with up to £5,000 available per business. Cardiff, as well as the majority of Wales, has been under local lockdown measures for some time, meaning that it's banned by law to leave or enter an area under these measures. But with virus cases continuing to rise across the country here, today's announcement wasn't unexpected and will have a wider impact on the Welsh public.
The idea of going back into lockdown is a bit worrying for me. Especially I'm diabetic, so I have to shield. So that's going to mean another few weeks or months inside. So
the first lockdown, people didn't really know what they were in for, but I think we all know what it means this time around. Just don't know how much more people can take with not being with their families.
I think it was always going to be coming anyway, and I'm glad it's coming sooner rather than later. Yes, it's going to take a temporary hit, but a temporary hit is better than losing your life.
The firebreaker is an idea the First Minister has been in favour of as an action to mitigate the spread for some time, following its suggestion by SAGE, the scientists that advised the governments across the UK a few weeks ago.
If you just have the circuit breaker and then you lift things, then all that will happen is that infections will rise again and you will yo-yo in and out of restrictions. So I think the really important question is not only to talk about the short-term restrictions, but how will you reset things? How will you make things different to keep the infections down?
Mark Drakeford has suggested there could be a new national set of rules following this firebreaker. But if this short lockdown fails to mitigate the spread of the virus, for how long could Wales be under stringent measures heading into winter?
And Thomas joins me now from Cardiff. What about schools, Thomas?
Well, that's been the main sticking point, really, for the discussions between the Cabinet here over the past weekend, really. What were they going to do on schools and childcare? The sticking point really was to do with high schools. I think there was already a decision in place, really, following the guidance that was made a couple of months ago when it came to the transmission with under 11s, that there was a reduced risk of transmission, so primaries will be reopening after the first week, which is of course actually half term here in Wales. Childcare will carry on as normal over the half term period, and special schools will also reopen. But after the first week, it'll only be year 7s and 8 that will be going back to high school. The rest of high school years will be carrying on with online learning before reopening at the end of this firebreaker period. Universities will continue as normal, but students will have to remain at home in their halls of residence or wherever they now reside. Now, there's been a mixed response from opposition parties. The Conservatives in Wales have said that the Welsh Labour government's decision is the wrong one. They should have persisted with local lockdown measures. Plaid Cymru supported the idea of a firebreaker here, but they are asking what will be the measures after we come out of this firebreaker. And it's something many people will be wondering, especially if the virus numbers don't go the way the Welsh Government predicts and expects them to go.
Thomas Morgan, thank you very much. No more money.